I'm Mimi Weimont.
And I'm Wes Weimont.
And we're the founders and owners of Beautiful Hot Yoga. I guess it all started when we were living in Cheese and just trying to figure out what the next step is after we were newly married. You know, what's the game plan?
And I grew up in Natchez, so I knew everyone there.
I grew up in Everett, so more kind of like a big city.
And I don't know, I was kind of ignorant to it, but she was definitely missing something. And when you're living in a town that you're not really feeling completely, I guess you start looking for something to be a part of and to give you the fulfillment that you're missing.
I was very, very fortunate to find a brand new studio in Yakima that really started this whole adventure.
And she met a very wonderful lady who was a huge part of our story named Stephanie Howard.
When I started hot yoga, I really didn't fully know what it was until I actually started practicing it. At that point in my life, I didn't have a lot of direction. But yoga gave me the space to sit with my thoughts and provide some organization, and also just to know that everything was going to be okay. I found out that that was the something that was missing from my life. It was being a part of something and meeting new people. It just felt like the right place to be. The owner, Stephanie, she was teaching most of the classes there, probably about 25, I want to say almost 30 classes a week, and was needing some help herself. She has 3 children and asked me and a couple other gals to start teaching, and here's my dialogue, can you memorize this and come back tomorrow and teach a class? And I was like, oh my gosh, what a gift, and also a big responsibility and opportunity. So I went home and I learned the dialogue. Within a day or two, I was teaching a class. It wasn't the greatest class, but I did the best that I could. And the experience, it just felt right. So I eventually got certified to teach yoga and learned as many modalities as I could. Within about 2 years, I helped manage Yakima Studio and Ellensburg location for a while. When we found out we were pregnant, we thought it would be fun to raise our family in a new town. Why don't we just pick up and move? We could start a yoga studio. We're seeing all of these lives change. I think this is something that I could really do.
I'd been to the studio in Yakima where she learned everything, and I'd sit there, not as a teacher, just as a client, and I'd listen to people tell their stories after class about how the experience had changed their life in some way. It really got to me. So when she said, I want to open a studio, my instinct was like, no way. But I instantly remembered all those stories, and I was like, you know what? Okay. We decided it'd be an opportune moment for both of us to get out of our hometowns and start anew. And when your pregnant wife has an idea, you kind of just get behind it, and then you can reel it back later if you have to, but we were all in. So we went to Steph, our teacher, and I remember being like, we want to open a studio in another town. We want to grow the community, and well, we want to move. She was a little concerned for us, but also really supportive. I think she was just trying to say, you really have no idea what you're getting into. And she was right. Owning a studio, you can't imagine what it's like. She gave us her full support, which was just incredible. Then it was like, well, where are we gonna go? So we picked a handful of cities, and Wenatchee just ended up being on the top of the list. So Wenatchee it is. And they didn't have much in terms of yoga at the time, only really happening at the gym, so it was the perfect place. Then we needed a name. I had a terrible idea to name it Mimi's Hot Yoga or something. Yeah, and I was like, no. This is before I was teaching, by the way. Before I was teaching, this is way back. Then I suggested holistic hot yoga. I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. Does anybody know what that word means? That's a dumb word. Then I was like, well, what about beautiful? And I was pretty against it. But then she actually showed me the word BEYOUTIFUL, and I was like, that actually makes sense, and I kind of get it. Especially with regards to what we're doing, it fits perfectly, really. You have the potential to be, and you are, in your own way, perfect. There's a perfect you inside. And what we do is extract that and bring it to the surface. From the get-go, it was like, I know the feeling that I got when I took a yoga class. This is what everyone should be feeling and experiencing, and this is what we need to be doing. And all of the extra stuff, we kind of figured out over time. But what was really important was just the yoga and helping heal people's lives, change people's lives, and offer a space for them to be able to get that. I was on Craigslist and I found this space, and that was just kind of the big moment. It had a great view, $1,000 a month, and the lease was literally just a page long.
And it was missing a little bit of mortar and it was pretty janky. And I think if you leaned on it too hard, it probably would have fell over. But that was kind of a symbol of sorts that we can take something that's kind of in shambles and turn it into something amazing.
They gave us a loan for $5,000. It was a personal loan. We didn't even qualify for a business loan, so they gave us a personal loan, and I think it was like 18% interest, or like just something ridiculous. And we were like, okay, thank you.
And $5,000 will pay for like the heater.
Yeah, it wasn't
Which was good, we needed a heater.
But we needed a bit more than that too. So we sold a lot of things we owned and kind of begged and borrowed from each of our parents, which really helped a lot. And we came out with about 30,000 bucks in total to get the place built. We had to live in the space. I worked about 20 hours a day. I was up all night with a couple buddies and we renovated the whole thing and turned it into a hot yoga studio in just 2.5 months. And once we were done, because we were kind of all in and completely broke, we had to live in the studio. So we slept in the lobby right in front of the retail and we put down our little sleeping situation. And then we'd get up at 4:30 in the morning to put that sleeping situation away so we could greet our clients for the 5 o'clock a.m. early morning class.
I was teaching about 25, 30 classes a week with a newborn. So Wes would take Porter and drive around while I taught the 5 a.m. class. And then he'd come back and drop off Porter so I could nurse. And then he would have to go out and do construction jobs just to be able to fund this new endeavor.
I wasn't really into the yoga game yet. I mean, I would take class. I was part of the team, but minimal. Mostly just helping finances with our family continue to roll down the road.
Then one day, Stephanie, bless her heart, she sat me down and she's like, Wes, are you gonna teach? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I'm wearing Carhartts, you know, I'm like a construction guy, I'm a woodsman, I'm not a yoga man. And she's like, well, wouldn't it be nice if maybe Mimi could take a day off every once in a while and you could step in and teach just for a day?
And I was like, yeah, I guess.
And she's like, what if she gets sick and needs someone to cover?
I'm like, fine, I'll learn to teach yoga.
So she signed me up for a training and it was the least likely of places I ever found myself. Like at first, it was not even an option for my future. And then here I am in this yoga training, learning to teach yoga.
It is the most pivotal moment I think that happened in my entire life. And it wasn't something that I chose. It was something that by a bunch of wise, influential people in my life, I ended up on the right path. In that training, I learned amazingly valuable things that have rerouted my life for sure, and our family's life, definitely. So we opened on New Year's Day of 2013. And in 2015, somewhere in the middle of the year, we had clients driving for like an hour, hour and a half to come take classes at our studio. And they were begging us to build a location closer to them. And we didn't really have the money to do it. And it was like, I'm honored and flattered that you want us to do that. I wish I could, don't know how.
And one of our clients, her name was Jen, was like, hey, like, do you need some help? Like, I would love to teach you yoga. And I was like, yes, here's your dialogue. Go home and learn it. Come back tomorrow. So at that point, we had Jen start teaching. We had a couple other teachers come on board. Stephanie would come back and do some teacher training so she could see the struggle. She had been there before. Jen, our instructor, she got accepted into Eastern for grad school. And she needed a truck to drive all of her stuff out. Wes has a truck, construction truck. Hey Wes, can you help me drive out to Spokane? And by then, we're pregnant with number 2.
So we get out to Spokane and unload Jen into this new apartment and get ready to go home, back to work, back to the studio.
And my transmission on my truck goes out. It's Labor Day weekend, Friday night before Labor Day weekend.
So I'm calling these transmission shops in town and they're all getting ready to close and I find one downtown that's willing to take my truck in. So I get down there and they're like, sweet, we'll get it fixed up by Friday. And I'm like, no, I gotta go back to work.
I'm having a bit of a moment, a non-yoga moment, like a normal woodsman moment.
Jen's like, just make it a baby moon. And I'm like, fine, we'll stay for the week. So we get a hotel and we make it a little bit of an extended baby moon.
So we got a rental car and we decided to see all the sites. We're gonna go to Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, and just check out the area because we've heard it's amazing. And as we're driving, we're coming up.
A light bulb comes on in her head. She's like,
there's not a lot of yoga in Spokane, so you could open a studio and I could help you run it.
And I was like, nope, that's a bad idea.
By the end of the week, we had signed a lease on this space. I don't know. I don't really remember how we got from that point to that point. But before my truck was done, we had signed a lease on the space
South Hill.
that we're sitting in right now.
So then the Leavenworth studio came into fruition. 3 of our Wenatchee teachers moved there and they were like, let's open a Leavenworth studio. If you guys are able to teach 3 to 4 days a week on the schedule, well then yeah, let's do it.
So within like a month or two later, we were building a studio in Leavenworth. And there's contractors building the studio here in Spokane. And in 2015, both studios opened within 2 weeks of each other. So we went from having one studio where I was teaching like once a week for fun to now I get to quit doing construction and be like a full-time yoga teacher. And we had 2 babies in diapers and 3 studios. And now we're in our car doing hot laps, Leavenworth, Wenatchee, Spokane, 7 days a week. And that's the new life.
In Spokane, we couldn't afford to have a home here, so when Wes was giving the construction guys just the dimensions of like what we need and want, he had the staff room here built out extra big, so we'd have a place to sleep, because we're now a family of 4. But at that point, it was a little embarrassing, you know, like but also we just were kind of rolling with it, like we knew what we needed to do, and this is how we had this is what we had to do to get it.
But that set up the real boom, which is what we'd kind of hoped would happen in Wenatchee, which was like a faster growth like we saw in Yakima. This Spokane studio exploded very quickly.
And people were driving from North Spokane, Spokane Valley, Coeur d'Alene, Deer Park, begging us to open a studio closer to them so they wouldn't have to drive an hour and a half to get to us.
Well, I mean, we did it once, why not again? So the very next year, we built 2 more. Went from 3 to 5. And we got this weird hair that we should open a kids yoga studio. So instead of doing more hot yoga studios, we opened a yoga school to train teachers, and we opened a kids yoga studio. It had its own space, its own paint scheme, its own brand, its own everything. It was only for kids.
Then we got out the map and did all the demographics and figured out how far people were driving.
So we're like, we need a Valley studio, we need a Coeur d'Alene studio, just in order to give people an opportunity in our community to experience what we do. So the next year in 2018, we built the Coeur d'Alene studio and the Spokane Valley studio. So all in all, 9 separate businesses in 5 years. But at a certain point, you know, you teach so many classes and you see so many people coming in and out of the studio, and they come out of a yoga room or a yoga class and they look at you and say like, thank you so much. Like you've literally changed my life. When someone asks you to open a studio, like you can't say no at that point. You know, you just see so many lives change, and it's almost like an obligation at this point that we have to continue to do what we've been doing.
So at this point we have a problem. We've got 9 businesses, 7 hot studios, a kids studio, and a yoga school, and there's only 2 of us. And we had a few other teachers, but with our 3rd child and the fast growth, we were just having too many logistical problems managing it all. So we sold the Leavenworth location to our manager there, which was an excellent idea, and she's still there thriving. It's called Alpine Hot Yoga. And our 2 Wenatchee locations, they were competing with each other in a way that was not really making sense. So we decided it was a good idea just to consolidate those and have it all under one roof.
Like 1 year after the Valley opened, COVID happened and everything went nuts.
We lost about half of our members through the shutdown.
And we should have lost them all.
Yeah.
And the fact that we only lost half is a miracle in itself. We're good at being broke. We've proved that over and over again. That's not gonna be a problem. The problem's gonna be like, what are we gonna do? All of our teachers, like they need to eat, they got things to do. Like, how are we gonna help them? And they're all sitting here like calling and texting us like, how can we help you? How can we help you? And we're like, you guys, like, I don't know how to say this, but it's over. Like, you don't need to help us. Like, how can we help you? Like, we got to get you through this. And they're like, no, it's not over. Like, this is never going to be over. And we're like, okay, that's a cute sentiment, but like, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the bank and like, it's definitely over. And our teachers did find a way to help. They helped by teaching virtual and outdoor classes. This really helped serve our members and keep our community connection strong when we couldn't open our doors. Many people relied on yoga to help them mentally and physically during the shutdown. They were telling us we're an essential business.
We didn't officially make that cut, but there were so many clients that said, actually, they are essential to me. And over 700 of those people asked us or allowed us to continue to take their money while we were closed, not offering any services.
I remember getting emails, please cancel my membership, please cancel my membership. But then I started getting different emails, clients wanting to keep their membership and asking how they can help support our studio and our community. Mostly wanting to ensure that Beautiful Hot Yoga would still be open and available when all of this was over. And it's still hard for me. You don't really know if what you're doing matters until you get pushed into a corner like that and you see like who's in your corner.
It's a great feeling. It's a powerful feeling. I'm forever grateful for the people that were in our corner. They gave us the privilege to be here today, to continue, and we're going to continue. We just had a meeting last week with our team, and we're gonna put the train back on the tracks and put the feelers out and see who else wants yoga in their community and see if we can make it happen.
So now we have 5 hot yoga studios, 5 little yoga communities, and it's time for what's next.
Well, we'll certainly be practicing yoga, I think, for the rest of our lives.
I can't imagine not teaching
Yeah.
forever.
Teaching is like the funnest part of the job.
Yeah, moving forward, I mean, we're in our late 30s, the second half of our 30s, so we got time.
This wasn't a part of the plan at all. It was
We didn't
very interesting.
plan
It's
to
been a
grow
lot of
this
fun.
business, you know? A lot of people are like, oh, you grew this big business. Like, no, we didn't. No, we were just holding on for dear life and appeasing the need, I suppose. Like doing what we have to do to give people what they need.
Looking back on the past 10 years, what we've been able to accomplish and what we've learned along the way, one, how much more we don't know, and 2, what's possible. Anything is possible. And that's very exciting because it keeps us humble and just knowing that there's so much more to offer and to learn and for the world to experience.
Everybody leaves here better than they came. Whether you're working, mopping the floor, whatever, like when you go away from this place, you feel just like, man, I'm glad I was there.
When you say like, well, why yoga? Like, well, it just seems so obvious, you know, and just why not? It's not just about the postures itself, it's about learning a lot about yourself along the way. We try to create the feeling of a home within our studio. We get to help improve everyone's lives. People are getting better and we get all the fulfillment. I mean, you want to be doing something meaningful with your life, and we are doing that absolutely 100%. This is exactly where we want to be.